Hey y'all, it's me, Bussin' Boone, and welcome back to Hot or Rot. And today we'll be reviewing episode 2 of Drag Race Philippines' Slaysian Royale. Our Slaysian divas were split into groups and challenged to come up with lyrics and choreography for the new hit single, Asian A. And the runway category was Tech Couture. Futuristic, animalistic, automatic, hypnotic, funky, fresh, animatronic, avant-garde, Couture. So we'll be recapping this week's episode to break all that down, plus talking about why I think this season's shaking up to be a bit of a mess. From weird judging decisions to production choices that just don't seem fair. Oh, and you better believe we've also got some major drama to cover between Yuhua and something Wong, who by the end of the episode was crashing out level 100, saying she was never gonna talk to Yuhua or Ivory again. The girls are fighting. And we've also got some drama to cover involving the House of Aja, a well-known pageant queen named Chevelle Brooks, and Elliott with 2 T's. So we'll start with that. On July 15th, the House of Aja, which includes Aja, Kandy Muse, Dahlia Sin, and Tsunami Muse, announced a world tour on Instagram. And their tour, now late in the month of August, is well underway, but apparently not everyone was excited or supportive of their tour. This last week, a queen known in the drag pageant circles named Chevelle Brooks posted on Facebook, "I don't know about this Jush," resharing a photo of the House of Aja from an article that was celebrating they just ended one of the legs of their tours. In the comments of this post, there were tons of random people being nasty to them, where one user we see wrote, "I was floored when I saw this. All them coins for making appearances, and this is what you present to the world. LMAO. Another person wrote, 2 out of the 4, them other 2 train wrecks. And another user wrote, "Not a hip in sight." And then Elliott with 2 T's, who, as we know, has long-standing beef with Kandy Muse, decided to get real cute in these comments with a screenshot of Kandy Muse out of context, writing, "Jump scare, LOL." And if y'all thought that tea was gangy, just wait until you hear this. One of my favorite games of all time is partnering with Paramount in the most totally radical crossover ever, dude. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, Shredder, and April from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are coming to Raid Shadow Legends as legendary champions. And their designs are gnarly. Leo's katana swords, Donnie's bow staff, Mikey's nunchucks, and wait for it, the pizza? No, like, I'm actually so gagged. Just seeing these guys in the game is taking me back to waking up early on Saturday to watch cartoons. All I could think about after watching this show was how audaciously delicious their pizza looked. Listen up, to unlock Michelangelo for your champion collection, all you gotta do is log in for 7 days starting August 21st. And if you collect all 6 of these champions, you'll get a special bonus reward even better than pizza. Y'all have been playing Raid for several years now, and what keeps me coming back are all the different ways to play this game. From figuring out how to spec my team of champions, to fighting other people's teams in the PvP arena. And I don't want you to miss out on this campaign or any of these insane special gifts I'm about to tell you about, so listen up. Download Raid using my special link or QR code on screen, and you'll get a huge starter pack with epic champion Tayrel. And once you reach level 15, you'll get another starter pack. Plus, you'll be able to use one of the following promo codes to get a legendary champion of your choice: Tree Hugger, Get Alice, Desert Queen, Demon Slayer, or Monkey King. But if I were starting fresh, I would definitely be using code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong, so click or scan to start downloading right now. Then, once you're in, find me under the name Bussy Queen, and make sure to join my clan I made just for my subscribers called Bussy Queen's Army. Thanks, Raid, for sponsoring today's video. And the first response I saw to this situation was from Kandy Muse, who screen capped this on her X profile and wrote, "Miss 3Ks wanna start with me again? You racist ass B, don't try it." And where I later saw Aja on August 20th write a long post on her X profile addressing this situation, saying this: "It never fails to amaze me how quick our own community is to tear us down. Instead of celebrating 4 black and brown artists selling out shows across the UK and about to take Europe, some of you would rather sit online dissecting bodies, costume, and bank accounts like you're qualified. Let me be very clear. Pageant drag is beautiful and I respect it deeply, but it is not what I do. What I do is very different. It is not the same lane. It does not ruin what you do, and what you do does not ruin what I do. There is room for all of us, so stop comparing apples to oranges. And let me make something else clear. Nothing I am saying has anything to do with Chevelle. I respect her and I love what she does, and I have always spoken highly of her. This is not about her. This is about the people in these comments who think nastiness equals critique. And since we're naming names, let's be real. Elliott with 3K has had the audacity to comment on this post like she is not a racist, calling Kandy Muse a jump scare. This is from someone who serves some of the worst fashion in the history of Drag Race. The last person who should be commenting on anyone's looks is her. The irony is almost funny if it weren't so tired. There's also another post Aja made about Elliott that I won't be reading, but she did address that now deleted post in another post, writing, "Well, I'm sure y'all enjoyed my Elliott with 3K's post. It was fueled with rage and anger and could have been worded better, so I deleted it. There'll probably be screenshots forever, but I should do better than that." And in a live video on Instagram, which was capped and reshared to X, we see Kandy Muse further addressing the situation with Elliott, saying this:
"Bitch, let me tell you something, Elliott. Keep my name out your mouth. I've already got you blacklisted from all of drag around the world. You want more? This is why I don't like this bitch. Because she always want to be the victim. Why you poking me? Why you screenshotting photos of me and putting it in
Because
comments?
she thought nobody was gonna see it.
And that's the tea. Now let's move on to Drag Race Philippines Slaysian Royale. This episode kicks off with Khianna cleaning up Madame Yoko's lipstick from last week's elimination, and where we hear a confessional from Yuhua saying she's realizing the competition is really on, and dare I say the competition is really starting to heat up. The girls then gather to discuss last week's elimination, and Khianna explains to the group she chose to save something Wong because she felt something was doing the most. And doing the most was something Khianna personally identified with, which certainly isn't wrong, or in something's case, Wong. But doing the most is probably the nicest way that anyone could have described something doing push-ups for 30 seconds while talking about a trans person's need to find chosen family while on the main stage, wearing nothing but a wig and a thong. Siam, on the other hand, has to apologize to something because she reveals the lipstick she chose was actually hers, where she then explains she wanted to save Madame Yoko because of deep ties to a friendship she made with Madame on day one, which to me sounded really nice, but also kind of like a pageant answer intended not to step on any toes or make something mad. Then for this episode's mini challenge, the girls find out they're gonna be running laps around the workroom with coconut stilts attached to their feet. Finally, a real challenge I can get behind. And drumroll, please guess who wins? Khianna. Which means Khianna has now won every single challenge put in front of her this season so far. The first episode's mini and maxi, and now this mini. The girls are also having a little fun with Khianna teasing that she may have the same trajectory as this season as she did in her original, where she also won the first episode's mini and maxi, but then went on to win no more challenges. But will history repeat itself? Stay tuned to find out. Mama Pao announces this week's challenge will be the girl group challenge, and then announces, gag of the season, that Khianna's prize for winning the mini challenge this week is that she gets to choose her entire team for the girl groups. Which, like, in terms of mini challenge prizes, is absolutely insane. Usually in setups like this, there are at least 2 captains where the queens can go back and forth choosing members for their group. But not today, Satan. Khianna literally just gets to choose her entire team and, of course, selects all the Filipina girls. Which means the setup and storyline for this episode is the Filipinas versus the international girls. Which is kind of unfair on multiple levels. First, in that the Filipina girls are all going to be speaking their native language, and thus will likely have an easier time working together. Never mind the fact that they all knew each other before this season even started. Plus 3 of the 5 Filipina girls are finalists from their prior season. This is a team of heavy hitters directly opposed against a team of early outs. Like, let's be real for a second. How do we think this challenge is gonna go? Not great for the international girls. And as rigged as this all feels against the international queens, I also can't deny that I was living for the drama of it. Like, this is great reality TV. And Ivory Glaze makes an interesting point in a confessional when she says Khianna likely put a big target on her back for when things actually start to heat up, saying that if an international girl ever ends up on top, then the Filipina girls will likely be the ones getting eliminated. And if the international queens of this season ever actually do win anything, she might be right. But to Ivory's point, yeah, Khianna did make a very exclusive group, and it would have been generous of her to maybe select one of the international queens to join her group and lend a little helping hand. But her choice not to do that just reads to me as Khianna not believing in the talents of any of the international girls. Which we'll see as the rest of the episode plays out may have been the right decision after all. Because while our 2 groups are conceptualizing their performances, Suki Doll asks the international group, who's a good dancer? A question that's met with complete silence before something Wong finally raises her hand, hesitantly volunteering some choreographical skills. Which is crazy because in a group of 6 queens, you'd think there would be at least one confident dancer, but there's not. And sure enough, during rehearsals, we see the international queens are a complete mess. Kitty is trying to help something Wong with blocking the choreo, but it's giving too many cooks in the kitchen, and the queens can't seem to lay down a cohesive plan for how they're gonna perform this song. And something keeps frustrating the other members of her group by switching up parts of the choreo when she's noticing the other queens aren't learning the steps. Which in the workroom the very next day turns into a fight between Yuhua and something as they're getting ready for the actual challenge, where these 2 seem to be talking about how badly things went, and something blames Yuhua for the mess that happened in rehearsals, saying the reason the choreo had to keep changing was because Yuhua kept effing it up. And where something also describes Yuhua here as a little effing bitch, which is a crazy barrage of names and accusations to make against Yuhua, and read to me as something being insecure in her leadership skills rather than Yuhua being an actual weak link. Yuhua defends herself, saying that she spoke up and asked for the choreo to change because the entire group was struggling, and something Wong just shuts her down, saying nope, which again was so nasty of something Wong to do, not only in front of the cameras but also in front of Ivory Glaze, another girl in their group. Her behavior reeked of a deep insecurity and overall inability to take accountability accountability for her actions. And I don't think I've seen a Drag Race queen be this directly mean in a non-playful, non-shady way to another contestant in a long time. And I really felt for Yuhua here, but more on this fight later. And now moving into the main challenge, which starts off with the performance from our international girls, which starts off just okay, I would say. Like, it was nothing special, but you could tell most of the group was at least trying, even if a lot of them were out of sync with each other and missing steps here and there. First up for this group's solos is Siam, who, look at the outfit, look at the hair. Can you guess who I'm going to say she looks like? Give yourself a pat on the back if you guessed Miss Fierce-alicious. Somebody let her know. Anyways, Siam's verse and performance was okay. I thought she sounded a lot better than her physical performance was, but there were a lot of girls in this challenge who were singing or rapping in another language, and unfortunately the English subtitles just didn't make it into the episode for whatever reason. And so these are difficult for me to evaluate, but I would give Siam a warming up here. Next up in their group though is Suki doll, who's giving good face and intensity in her lip sync, but a lot of the girls on this team just didn't have. And so Suki definitely stood out to me in this group. Plus I loved her line where she's saying, "Taste my true north flavor." Hot. And next up in this group is Ivory Glaze, who, bless her heart, looks like it is her first day on a stage ever. And like, her verse is okay, but this is a performance-based challenge, and she looked uncomfortable, unsure of herself, and had the delivery and intensity of a wet blanket. This was a rat. And next up in this group is Yuhua, who's the first queen in this group to look like she's actually excited to be performing. She's punching the air, her face is lit up, and she made me laugh with her lyric about knowing her ABCs, so don't say hero. Hot. And next up is Kitty Space, who also does okay in this challenge. I really enjoyed the cartwheel she did at the end, and it was fun to see her adding a little bit of physicality to her performance. This was hot. And next up is somebody Wong, whose physicality in this performance was a little weak for me, but I did enjoy her vocals on the track. She got a decent voice, and the vocal runs when she's singing "Let Me Hear You Say A" and the ad-lib parts of the song were genuinely impressive to me. There's a weird moment in the last part of her verse though, when it looks like she stops lip-syncing her verse and then goes back to the chorus a little too early. The camera cuts to the judges, who are there looking confused at why she stopped lip-syncing, which cues us as viewers to also think, oh wait, yeah, what did go wrong there? Because the editing and production here definitely made it seem like something Wong didn't know her lyrics. Apparently the tea is though that the final version of this track, which included that last vocal run in her verse, wasn't actually played for the queens until the day they did their performance. On her Instagram story, somebody Wong wrote about this, saying, "We heard the final version with my ad-libs when we performed it on the runway for the first time. We also ran the whole performance twice, and the second time we performed it, I did lip sync my ad-lib, but they didn't use it." And so it seems there was a little bit of sabotage for something Wong going on. Even with her not lip syncing that ad-lib though, I didn't really mind, but as we'll see here in a moment, this becomes a huge point of contention with the judges. And overall, I think I would give something a hot for her verse and vocals, if maybe like a warming up for the physicality, which I thought was a little bit weak here. Next up, we've got the Filipino girls, who have named theirselves Nice upon Pinoys. And when they come on stage, it is immediately clear that they are just operating at a completely different level. Their group choreo is actually stunning. They made their performance feel like I was watching a music video that had been rehearsed for weeks. And every one of their members is in sync and knows what they're supposed to be doing at any given point in the song. Plus the actual choreo they're doing is just a lot more interesting. They're not doing simple little bump, bump, bump. They're doing like ba, 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 ba. And first over the solos in this group is Brigiding, and I love the part in her verse when she sang "Fly High, Mabuhay" and ends with "Pop Off." I really think she ate this performance up, and I would say Brigiding is really becoming one to watch this season. The solo was hot, and I've got to say this group really shines in the transitional moments in their performance when one solo moves to another. Because when Brigiding's performance ends, she dips down to reveal Bernie, who's now behind her, who starts her solo. And Bernie's solo is great as well, even if the only lyrics I could understand here were about trans power and Filipina power. She had a great energy about her, and this was totally hot. And next up is Arizona, who has a bit of a show-stopping moment when at the end of her verse, she ends saying, "Smoking up the competition, vape couture," where she then hits her vape. Where did it come from? I don't know, but it was so stupid and gaggy and funny, and brought a lightheartedness to the very serious intensity of this group's dance move. This was totally hot. And next up is Khianna, who starts off her verse rapping, "PH Pride, here comes the tide, red blue sun, get ready for the ride," which flows flowed so nicely and of course was a great reference to the Philippines flag. She wraps her entire verse and delivers such an intensity in her physical performance that I was sitting there on the edge of my seat. She ends it by jumping up into the air and then like falling down onto her back with her legs in the air. And again, I was just so gagged and impressed by what she was doing. This was hot. Venus DeLuxe solo was also incredible, and while I'm not really sure what she was saying because her lyrics for the verse were not in English, I can definitely say it sounded fierce. And then the comedy she added into her solo at the end of her performance where she drops into a split and then gets dragged by the other girls across the stage was absolutely incredible. This was hot. And if all of that wasn't enough for us, the group continues to bring out new group choreo moments in the last part of this track. And it's crazy to me how these girls absolutely put every other Drag Race franchise girl group challenge to shame. This challenge then ends with the international girls coming back on stage to do a little bit of a dance battle and then one large final group number, which is great for the Filipino team because they were killing it, but maybe a little embarrassing for the international girls who look clumsy in comparison. And next up we've got Runways. Category is Tech Couture, where Suki is first on the stage and gagged the absolute tuck out of me. She's giving a beautiful white pearlescent showgirls look with these little spinny hip moments and sends a beautiful flowy organza that moves across the stage. She is giving Mother of Pearl, she's giving Earth of Venus, she's giving me life. This look was hot. And except for something Wong, who is giving Teletubbies meets Vivacious and Ornacia, I guess. Come on, Teletubby, teleport us to Mars. But you know what? I was kind of living for the stupidity of this. Like, it's so silly and so weird and I guess like futuristic, but it's also not really techie to me. I'm not getting any kind of animatronics, animalistic, or nature blended with technology in a way that creates avant-garde fashion. I'm just getting, how's your head? And to me, this is just more of a club kid look that didn't really meet the definition of the brief, and as stupid and entertaining as it was, yeah, it's kind of a rock. And next up, Kitty Space gags us all the way to the circus and back. I love the eyes painted on her face and the crazy carousels moving on her shoulders as shoulder pads. Barnum and Bailey shaking. Ringling Bros quaking. Cirque du Soleil found dead in a ditch, bitch. I also loved when her hat opened up and inflated at the end of the runway. This look was so cool. I loved it. It's totally hot. And next up we have Siam coming out as a beautiful closed-up lotus flower that opens as she goes down the runway. And this look is super gorgeous. Love the reference to her culture and of course the lotus flower itself. This look is hot. And next up we've got Yuhua, who's wearing this. There it is. There's the look, everybody. Here's what she's wearing. Like, what the absolute tuck is this? She does explain that her original Tech Couture look broke down, and so this was her last minute attempt in the workroom to put something together to fit the brief. And my honest truth is that this is one of the worst things that has ever walked any of the Drag Race runways ever, but it's also a look that I totally love because it is just so bootleg and so stupid and just crazy. Who else would have the courage to walk this down the runway when the other queens are dressed in some of those avant-garde craziness that we've ever seen? Only Yuhua. Yuhua never change. This look is a And next we've got Khianna, who is giving me genetic flower people mutation thing from Annihilation a little bit. This look is jaw-dropping and truly animalistic, futuristic, tech couture, avant-garde insanity. I love all the crazy flower petal branches that are moving as she comes down the runway, and girl, she 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This look is hot. Next up we got Brigiding, whose look didn't really gag me. I wasn't getting futuristic, animalistic, technology, or any of the other words about this look. To me, it read more as like 20s, 30s flapper girl meets Art Deco. But to her credit, she did have some moving animatronic feathers on her headpiece. I just didn't understand the vision for this or what she was really going for or how it fit the brief, so I'm gonna give it a rock. And next up, we got Venus DeLuxe, whose runway at first glance feels completely wrong for the runway theme. She's in an actual fish net, like you use to catch fish, dress, with fish attached to various pieces and some fish in a hat. She then empties the hat at the end of the runway and reveals that the fish are animatronic and start wiggling and squirming, and she puts the hat on her head as a little bit of a reveal and costume change moment. This was definitely weird and fun, and what I love most about it is that it was different from everyone else's, but I think still did very much fit the theme, but maybe arguably was a little less avant-garde than some of the other looks, but I would still give this a hot. And next up is Bernie, who's giving us a beautiful white butterfly scale wing layered dress with yellow detailing that is just beautiful. And I think she looks absolutely gorgeously hot. Next up though, we've got Arizona, whose look was a no from me, dog. Her idea, she says, about this look is that she's giving Ball of Fire, and I will say I like the top part of her look, like just the top with the horns and tassels, but there's a lot going on with the textures and the spinning and the pieces, and the hair is crazy. But then you look at her bottom half and she's just got on like a Scoochie Mama skirt and some really ugly strappy heels. This is maybe like half of a hot look, but is not serving me a cohesive vision, so I'm gonna give it a rock. And finally on the runway is Ivory Glaze, who said she was inspired by hypnosis to serve this beautiful white and black dress, and the styling of this is absolutely gorgeous. It's giving me like Audrey Hepburn a little bit. It's chic, cute, feminine, hot, and I love how she incorporated those little spinning discs on her hair and then chest to play into the hypnosis theme. This look is hot. And concerning placements this episode, Ivory, Yuhua, Something Wong, Brigiding, Arizona, and Vinas are called out as tops and bottoms, which I personally had a major problem with because what do you mean Khianna was just safe this episode? Her group number and runway were some of the best tonight. And the only reason I can think that she wasn't called out as a top was because the judges maybe didn't want to risk giving her a second win after she already has one win and too many challenge wins. Like I could very much see a possibility where if they had have called her into the top, she also would have won this challenge and the season quickly would have just become Khianna's drag race. But would that have been a bad thing? I don't think so. Anyways, rigor mortis of that judging decision aside, I can agree with everybody else here standing on the stage where we've got obviously Ivory, Yuhua, and Something in the bottom, and then Arizona, Vinas, and Brigiding in the top. Before critiques begin, Madame Pao asks each of the girls on stage if there was anyone on their team that was dragging the rest of the team down. Ivory says Something Wong for changing the choreo too much, and then Yuhua also says Something Wong for changing the choreo too much, which apparently set Something Wong off. She interrupts Yuhua in the middle of talking to Madame Pao and says, "You should have just said F it if you can't learn it. You're gonna have to look bad. I guess it's my fault for catering to Yuha's inability to learn the choreo." The girls are fighting. The third queen to answer Madame Pao's question is of course Something Wong, and she says Yuhua was the one dragging their group down. Where Yuhua then explains she doesn't feel she should be punished for speaking up on behalf of the rest of the group when she told Something Wong that the choreo needed to be changed to be made a little easier so that everyone could learn it. The first two Filipina girls aren't really ready to play Madame Pao's game, though, because Brigiding says there was no weakling, as does Arizona, which gets a really funny response from Madame Pao, who, when she hears these responses, just says, okay. But Venus DeLuxe is ready to play the game and get a little dirty. She says Bernie was actually the one dragging their group down, and says she was the weakest link because all she learned from Bernie's lyrics was that she was advocating for trans power, which to me was kind of a weird thing to say. I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't understand the rest of her lyrics because they weren't in English and I don't know what she said, but I don't know. I just thought that was a weird call out there. And she maybe could have said something else like she wasn't a team player or maybe didn't learn the choreo if that's how she felt about her. Regardless of what Venus said about Bernie though, Madame Pao loves this response because she was actually willing to play the game and name a name. Also notable here is Madame Pao telling Something that her vocals were giving a little bit of Beyonce with a lot of Jay-Z. Where she then looks at Yuhua and asks Yuhua if she thought Something was giving Beyonce, to which Yuhua says no, her performance wasn't perfect. Like Mama Pao is not afraid to stir the pot and mess with these girls and get a little drama out of them, and I'm living. And so Venus DeLuxe and Arizona Brandy are announced as the top two queens of the week, which from this top three I do think is correct, and Something Wong and Ivory are announced as the bottom two of the week, which I do also agree with because I think having Yuhua in the bottom for this performance-based challenge wouldn't have made any sense considering Yuhua I thought was one of the better performers in her group, and I think she was really only on the stage in this moment to play out the Yuhua versus Something Wong storyline. But I suppose another interpretation of Yuhua being in the bottom three here was she was there for her runway, but they didn't really seem to highlight or emphasize that much, so I don't think that had anything to do with it. Back in Untucked, the girls get into it, and Something Wong says she was thrown under the bus by her teammates. Ivory brings up that she said her name because there were just too many iterations of the choreography for her to learn, and Something Wong makes a fair point. Without her, there may not have been any iterations of the choreography to learn because she was the only one that volunteered to do choreo for the group. And so as a viewer, I can definitely acknowledge here, this is a tough spot for Something to be in because she had the bravery to volunteer her talents, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But I will also point out here, I think there was a big issue with the way the teams were split in terms of leadership because Khianna was kind of a de facto leader for her group. She won, and so she got to choose all of her teammates, whereas the international queens just kind of ended up in a group together and they had to duke out or decide who would be assigning different portions of this challenge. Anyways, Something goes on to call Yuhua and Ivory snakes, bitches, and hoes and says she's never gonna talk to them again. Like, Something Wong is mad, and she's very much playing, I think, into the hands of the producers here to give some dramatic reality TV moments. But what I wasn't sure of was how self-aware of herself she was during all of this. Like, was she playing up this immature, dramatic, I can't take accountability character for the cameras, or was she genuinely unable to accept responsibility and accountability for leading her group to demise? I don't know. Ivory did a much better job, I think, talking to the top two. She's getting emotional, talking about how she wants a chance to shine in this competition because she was first out in her original season. But on the other hand, she's now had 2 episodes to shine, and I think going into the next episode, she's got a lot to prove if she wants to stay in the competition. Back on the main stage, Venus destroys Arizona at a lip sync to XL by Sylvie and reveals that purely based on track record, she'll be eliminating Something Wong. And this is tough to watch, I think, because Something Wong was obviously not having a great time this episode, but I also don't think she, individually speaking, did the worst in the challenge. That crown would, of course, go to Ivory, but it also was her second time in the bottom, and again, she really was not painting herself in a good light to stay in the competition by blaming other people for her problems. And so if I were in Venus's heels, I definitely would have made the same decision to give Something Wong the karate chop. Where here I must also point out, Something Wong came back from Untucked with no shoes on and no headpiece. Go on, girl, give us nothing. And so we say goodbye to Something Wong, who I also want to remind y'all does deserve, I think, a little bit of grace. She was very entertaining for these 2 episodes and gave us some great television. So let's celebrate that. But as for my final thoughts on this season, I do feel it's shaking up to be a little bit of a mess. And exactly what I thought was gonna happen is happening. The Filipino girls are absolutely stomping on the necks of the international girls, and I'm having trouble seeing a reality where any of them make it into the top 5, because I think the top 5 is gonna just be the Filipino girls. And again, to be clear, I'm not mad that the Filipino girls are absolutely slaying this competition. Like, they are talented as hell. I just think it's kind of messy and obvious for Drag Race Philippines to host a competition where they're inviting other international contestants only to set it up so that there's no chance for one of them to win. And for Hottest Haunts this week in the challenge, I'm gonna give it to Khianna, and on the runway, Suki Doll. I also asked my patrons to vote on their Hottest Haunts, and this week they've chosen Khianna and Vinas DeLuxe, respectively. And y'all don't forget to download Raid right now by clicking my link below or scanning the QR code on screen to take advantage of all these insane bonuses for new players, and of course the totally radical new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collab. And lastly, I want to give an extra special shout out to Petra Tilsner, who's just joined my Patreon at the hot tier, and Ashton, Felicia, JBR, Laura, Matthew Burns, and Will and Tanner, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collectors tier at patreon.com. See you later, love ya, bye.